Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Taylor Talks Trades. Today I've got Keith Hogg from Lothian Built Environment Services. He's going to be sharing his journey of personal development, professional development, and just really getting himself out of his comfort zone and how that's worked well for him and his business. Keith, welcome on. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How's yourself?
I'm good. I'll start where I always start, mate. How did you get into the trades then?
I was always kind of into technical and creative subjects at school. Yeah. Art, craft and design, physics, things like that. I thought about going to art college, but I wanted to pick something that I knew I had a definite chance of getting a job at the end of it. So I applied to Heriot University to do all the different subjects. I eventually chose building surveying, got an unconditional offer, went to study building surveying. So building surveying's got a varied topic. You tend to be a bit of a jack of everything on the consultancy side. That quite appealed to me. It was quite kind of technical and hands-on. There was a bit of architectural design work and that sort of thing in it for me too, so I went and did that. My first year kind of went all right. I was just an average student to start with. And then I got an opportunity for sponsored employment with a firm called Hardy's just after my first year, so I went to work for them one day a week, worked in all my holidays. They also gave me a bit of a bursary to help with my studies, which was great, really great opportunity, and it's great that kind of firms out there are doing things like that. In my second year, I got an award for most improved student, and it was because I was able to apply what I was learning in the workplace back to my studies. And I thought, that's quite good. So I will admit I did kind of struggle at first in the workplace. Kind of suffered a lot with sort of social anxiety. Struggled to speak. I suffered quite a lot with a stutter when I was at school and also my early years at university, but the guys in the office, I didn't like it at the time, but they kind of forced me to make loads of phone calls for them because they kind of spotted that he needs to improve his confidence. So they got me doing that. As I said, probably actually hated them at the time for it, but it was the best thing for me because I got speaking to people, developed some interpersonal skills and that sort of thing. In my third year, I then won Best Student in the Year. And again, it was just because of that workplace experience, going back and forward. I started to get a wee bit better at the job. So I sort of became the office CAD technician. So I would go out and do all the measured surveys with the kind of senior surveyors, draw up their plans for them so they could then go and develop their details. I was also learning how to use CAD, which was also helping my studies because everybody else was drawing by hand and I could do it a lot quicker, make changes a lot easier and that sort of thing. Then I really knuckled down in my fourth year. I thought I've got a chance to really do something good for myself here. I started my dissertation project in the summer holidays, when we were meant to be off. Got to the end of the year, and I won Best Student in the entire construction and project management year. I got a first class honours with a certificate, industrial training. I got awarded the Watt Club medal, and then a couple of weeks later, I got a letter through the door from the RICS, basically saying I'd won an award for my dissertation project as well. And then Hardy's offered me a full-time contract. So that was me kind of made to start off in my career. But I was still kind of struggling a bit with anxiety and things like that, getting really stressed out at work, and I wasn't always dealing with it properly as well. So
what was causing that then? Because it sounds like everything was going really well. It sounds like you were applying yourself, things were going good. So was it just a bit of self-doubt, or were you just kind of worried about was it the new environment, or what was kind of?
I probably had underlying mental health problems that I bottled up and didn't deal with properly. So I used to kind of deal with it by hammering myself with training, going out running, took up kickboxing, going to the gym, but I was doing it far too much and I was probably destroying my central nervous system instead of actually doing it for benefits. And I was also going out with my mates at the weekend and drinking far too much. So you take those three things, workplace stress, hammering yourself with training and drinking too much all at once, it was making myself quite mentally ill. So I wasn't really getting any
fair play for
any
recognising it though, because a lot of people would just stay stuck in that cycle, and it's good that you're kind of, well, I guess it's maybe easier now looking back, being aware of it. You maybe weren't as fully aware of it at that time. What was the progression from there then? So you'd got your job with Hardy's and won all these amazing awards. That must have been a really good feeling. That surely must have helped the anxiety a wee bit, surely, because it's. It
was, but I guess I kind of had a bit of imposter syndrome. I didn't believe it. I was just like, oh, I'm just good at passing exams. I'm not any good at the job. And I made a lot of daft mistakes early on in my career. I actually considered leaving a few times and things like that because I was getting that stressed out. I wasn't sleeping well. I was going home at the weekends, worrying all weekend. I did start to deal with it a bit better though. Hardy's were great. They gave me a bit of help. The managing partner actually took me to his house one day and kind of sat down with me and said, you know, we can help you get counselling.
Yeah,
and that was brilliant. They were really supportive. Yeah. But I did start to get a bit better. In terms of progression, I enrolled on the APC process. That's your assessment for professional competence to become a chartered surveyor. Yeah. Takes a minimum of 2 years. There's a lot of work involved in it. It's basically almost like another university course, but in your spare time whilst you're working. So I had to prepare a lot of paperwork and go for my final interview in front of a panel. That was absolutely terrifying, especially for someone like me that gets a bit nervous. I think it was about a month or two after I'd done that, found that I passed. I become one of the youngest chartered surveyors in the country at that time at 23. I've since been well beaten by that now. Yeah. I think there's a 20 or 21 year old done it, because it's like a minimum sort of 6 year process to be able to do it. And when you're going to university, I think I was 17 when I first started. It was like the fastest that I could possibly do that.
That's a big undertaking as well, eh?
Aye, but I still didn't believe in myself at the time. Yeah. I still had that rumbling on.
It's quite mad, like looking for the outside looking in. It's quite mad to think, but obviously mental health and imposter syndrome and issues with just self-belief and all of that, it's not really got a rhyme or reason to it, has it? It doesn't always really make sense, to be fair. So I get it, but it's actually quite sad to hear, because it's like as if you never really got to celebrate them wins very well, and you should have been, because you should really be proud of yourself for how much you've achieved there. Like, that's brilliant. But I do get that sometimes, and I've had it myself as well, like sometimes you just can't say like, oh thanks, I have done well, and somebody congratulates you and you almost go, yeah, I'm good at that, but I'm rubbish at this, and you kind of almost throw away like the bit you're good at, and I think that is like you've kind of picked up on it as like imposter syndrome or a lack of self-belief or whatever. But no, well done, mate, for actually like you're out the comfort zone now and sharing that as well. So it's good that you recognise that although it's uncomfortable, you should go and do it anyway. Where does that bit come from? Like the actual belief that I'm going to do it anyway, because you went and stood in front of those panels, you did those exams that would have been probably terrifying at the time. Like, what made you just take that wee step to do it? Something inside me that doesn't want to give up. Yeah. I do have bad days and that sort of thing, but there's always something that says, nah, you've got to get up and keep going. And I guess that's where that came from. That's brilliant, eh?
I wanted to prove
quite
myself.
Inspirational, that.
Aye. Wanted to prove myself wrong. Yeah. To kind of beat the imposter. Aye, and also wanted to beat anybody else that kind of doubted me wrong as well, because I had a bit of that going on. Yeah. So aye, that's kind of what fueled the fire to kind of keep going. Yeah, so even after that, I then kept my kind of academic stuff going. I went to Forth Valley College, did the NEBOSH construction certificate. I wanted to get into kind of CDM compliance and that sort of thing. Yeah. I then went and joined the Association for Project Safety. It's not as intense as our ICS process, but still had to submit a lot of information to a telephone interview to prove that I was competent. And I kept kind of developing in the workplace. With Hardy's, I eventually got an opportunity to go and work with an NHS health board. Right. So I went to work there for a few years. Yeah. Left Hardy's on really good terms, by the way. Even in my resignation letter, I said I'd like to come back and work for you again one day. Yeah. You know, everything was fine there. I just wanted to go in a bit of a different direction. Yeah. So I went more into a sort of facilities management role there.
Did you just fancy a new challenge and just try something different?
Aye, and it's also client side as well, and public sector, so something completely different. Really on the other side of the spectrum. It was a bit of a kind of culture shock, but it was good. So I was managing a lot of the maintenance contracts, but the health board I was working with didn't have a lot of stuff in place at the time, so I had the opportunity to go in and kind of develop a lot of the procedures and processes. And my boss was great, and she gave me a lot of kind of free rein to do that, and she was also very supportive too. So I'd had a lot of good people help me along the way. I guess I still wasn't kind of properly dealing with my mental health type thing. I was still using the old coping mechanisms, hammering myself with training and going out with my mates and kind of drinking too much. So I still had that, and I was kind of creating a bit of a time bomb for the future. I still kept going with the academic side of it as well, so they had a training budget, and I kind of said to my boss, I was like, look, we could get external consultants involved to do this stuff for us. It's like fire risk assessments, Legionella management, environmental management as well. Or I was like, you could put me on all the courses for that and I'll do it. And she agreed to that. So I went and did my NEBOSH fire certificate, I did the NEBOSH environmental, and I did my City & Guilds Legionella risk assessors course.
Your CV must be like a scroll.
Aye.
Hi guys, sorry to interrupt the episode, but I just wanted to say a massive thank you to Scope Branding for being our new podcast sponsor. As you're aware, if you've been listening and following the podcast, I'm really big on my branding and having branded workwear. We've teamed up with these guys. They've done all our work at Taylor Roofs, Taylor Solar, and now the Taylor Talks brand here that you can see. They're good quality, good prices, and really good service. Go and connect with Scope Branding on their social media channels, check out their website, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode.
I've always tried to keep getting better. I've never just accepted, oh, that's me qualified, I'm just going to stay there. And I've always wanted to get better and keep going. That job was really good because it gave me loads of experience in M&E services, because I was having to work with all the maintenance contractors. So I'd come from a building surveying background. I was now learning about ventilation systems, air conditioning, fire alarms, emergency lighting, how all this works in the building, and getting a bit hands-on myself. I was getting involved in all the removals contracts because we were going through a bit of a change process. And it was all kind of going really well. But as I said, there was a bit of a mental health time bomb going on. Started kind of suffering from panic attacks, and I really wasn't dealing with stuff very well. Had a bit of a breakdown and eventually went and sought help. So kind of went to speak to a doctor. Got put on tablets, which made me worse. Then got put on tablets to counteract the effects of those tablets. But I eventually got a bit of a diagnosis, and I found that I actually had bipolar disorder, and I'd had it all this time, and I hadn't been dealing with it. And when you take someone with bipolar and put them in a stressful kind of construction environment, like if you look up recommended jobs for people with bipolar, it's things like librarian and stuff like that. No offence to librarians, but you're meant to be in a calm, quiet environment. And I was working in the construction industry. Aye. But
a bit of a recipe for disaster in many respects. But
aye. So I went to get that help, made a lot of changes in my life, stopped going out at the weekends. I adjusted my training, started doing a bit of self-development. I took up Tai Chi. My mum does Reiki, so I started doing Reiki.
What is
Reiki
Tai Chi?
It is a martial art, but the form I did was purely for your health.
Right, okay.
And it kind of covers all the sort of meridian points in your body and things like that. So you are kind of doing different forms and breathing.
Balancing yourself and things like that.
Putting yourself back into balance, developing your inner energies. And, that was quite life-changing as well. Still do it to this day. I'm not as diligent with it as I should be, but I still do it, particularly when I get quite stressed out. Yeah,
it's good to have like that. So like you started to swap the bad habits, like maybe the drinking or maybe the overtraining and over-exercising for things like this, and then I'm guessing that started to make a good shift for you then. What's Reiki again? It's
kind of healing with your hands.
Yeah. I think I've done that before. Like, and did you use crystals and things like that? And that's right. And what other things have you done?
Mindfulness and kind of meditation. So I recently went on a 8-week mindfulness course at the Edinburgh Assault Rooms with the Mindfulness Enterprise. It's a guy called Gary Young that takes the course. And
I think I've heard of him. I've seen him on LinkedIn, I think.
Really good.
Yeah.
He's quite active on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
He's really
I've
good.
heard a lot of good things about him.
They did a day retreat down at Dalkeith Country Park as well. So you go down and do Qigong and all the other things, go for a walk in the woods. And it was really good.
And it's probably not a very, for trades, it's not really there's probably a stigma attached to all of that stuff, isn't there?
Yep.
What would your kind of answer or message be to anyone who has got that stigma attached to it? What would you be saying to them?
I think you need to get help and speak up about it. Because if you keep bottling it up, it just ends up getting worse. And people need to speak up and look out for one another more. So I came across some quite alarming stats recently in that regard. Somebody shared it on LinkedIn actually, and I went and watched it on YouTube. If you work in construction, well, you'll obviously be aware from having a roofing business. One of the main killers is falls from height. You're actually 40 times more likely to die from suicide if you work in construction because of the stress involved in the lifestyle and all that sort of stuff. I think you're 2 or 3 times above the national average rate as well. So when you when you start to think about these subjects, you think you can't just say to someone, man up, or kind of get on with it. You need to talk to each other, look after your workmates, make sure each other's all right. If someone's coming in not looking very well, have a chat with them.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think it all starts with talking, and then you can help develop things thereafter.
Yeah, it does. It's hard to be vulnerable, but I think there's a lot of people trying to make it easier. I think there still is a big stigma, but the podcast has been good for this. We've had quite a good few episodes, and one will come out before this one comes out. But it's the Mind Your Head podcast. Rob Muldoon, he's sort of going up and down the country with the Lighthouse charity and doing talks and construction and things like that. And I've had other guests on that have opened up and shared their story, much like what you're doing just now. And this is part of the hopefully solving the problem. It's no maybe the overall answer, but it's just one wee other part that lets us kind of share our stories and be open about it, and then it hopefully inspires somebody else to speak up and get the help that they need, because they deserve it. Nobody deserves to go through that, and I'm getting that kind of vibe from you that you've got a feeling of wanting to help others so that they don't really need to go through like maybe them troubled years that you did have, where you were applying yourself and you were probably achieving in the work setting, and you're probably achieving in the training as well. I'm guessing you would have been probably quite fit and active and stuff, but you just were probably blocking out that other side and no looking after yourself really, probably, I guess, internally and within. So like fair play to you for sharing it and putting it out there, and hopefully anybody listening, you know, if they need to hear it at this point, hopefully that's their sign to speak to somebody and go and seek a wee bit of advice, because it does get better. It definitely does get better. So that's great. What was your kind of steps moving on then with so you took on the NHS health board job, and then when did the dots start to join where you thought, I'm going to do my own thing? When did that kind of come about, or was there other bits in between?
I guess it was having some revelations after the kind of breakdown I had. I thought, don't know if I can do this anymore, what I'm doing just now. And I kept getting offers from my mates, will you come and help me price this job? Will you do my drawings for my extension? Can you write a risk assessment for me? And you know, so on and so forth. I thought, I wonder if I could work for myself. I took a really big risk, kind of against doctor's orders type thing. And I thought, I'm going to set up myself. And then I went and bought an old Citroen Berlingo van. My plan was, if I ever lose work, I can go and do deliveries. So I can do whatever it takes just to sustain myself and pay the bills. And I set up myself. So that was doing building surveying, architectural design and construction health and safety compliance. And I kept going with all the kind of training and academic stuff as well. My pal's a stonemason, he works doing rope access, and he said, how about you come out with me on the ropes? So I went to Rathlow Climbing Centre and got my ropes ticket, and we went out together doing loads of different surveys on churches and castles, tenements. It was quite a good feeling knowing that you're going to be abseiling for a living when you got up in the morning. That kind of got curtailed a bit.
How was that one for the anxiety?
I actually got the nickname Big Shaky because I was like that at the top. This was just eventually got better, but the nerves are always there. But that's what keeps you alive as well when you're doing that, because you make sure you're all kind of safe, and there's a bit camaraderie because you're all kind of looking after each other as well. That kind of got curtailed a bit during the pandemic because I got COVID and ended up in hospital. So it sort of knackered my physical fitness. I'm getting better now, and I might eventually go back to it one day, but that's where I kind of stopped doing it. And because of that, I got more and more involved in the architectural drawing side, because it was something that I could do from my desk. And in recognition of that, I then went on to become a Chartered Architectural Technologist with CIAT through the experience route. Because when you tell everybody you're a building surveyor, they think you value houses. They didn't think that you do drawings. And
It's such a wide scope of different things that you've done. It's quite amazing, actually.
But I think it
gives you variety as well, doesn't it? So like you could almost be utilised in so many different. It's like a big Swiss Army knife for construction, almost. Like for all the different bits. It's really interesting.
Someone's called me that before. They said, you're the Swiss Army knife of construction. It was a guy I worked with.
That's quite a good one. You need to get that sort of as your LinkedIn bio or something like that.
I think it gives me a kind of unique approach to design. So you know, when I go to get involved in design work, I'm thinking about all these different things that I've been involved in to come up with a solution for the client. And I've got this kind of mantra that there's always a way. When you've got a problem, there's always a way to solve it, even when it looks absolutely horrendous and everyone's kind of pulling their hair out. Well, I've not got any left. That's the kind of way. That's the kind of way that I approach my job. That's most of my work just now is architectural design work, and it seems to be growing. I'm getting larger and larger projects. So I started off just doing sort of domestic alterations, porches, small extensions, attic conversions. Now I'm doing one-off houses. Kind of small developments involving several flats, be doing the odd kind of commercial job and that sort of thing too. But when you step up to that level, you get a whole new level of stress as well.
Yeah, so you need to be mindful of
Aye, so I need to watch that, but because I'm looking after myself, I'm able to deal with it a bit better now.
Yeah, and cold water therapy, that's something you've recently started as well?
Yeah, I started that about 6 months, about 6 months ago, in the winter. And I almost ran away on the first day of it because I was terrified, but I just kind of threw myself in. Immediately started hyperventilating, and my pal that I was with taught me through it, got me to slow down my breathing, and then I went back the next day. I was still terrified, but I knew I could do it, and it's something that I've done every single day without fail. I've either had a cold shower, gone in the sea, gone in a river, gone in a reservoir every single day since I started it. I've never been that diligent with anything. Yeah,
no, it's a good discipline. I have the cold shower every single day as well. We go through seasons of doing the cold water dips, me and my brother. Again, once you get into the rhythm of it, it's really good for you. And sometimes it's no that tangible that you can say, like people say, oh, what does it do for you? And you're like, you sometimes can't quite explain it. You feel better, and the discipline of continuing to do it, there's just something about it, you know, it takes you in the right direction. It's no as easy as saying it does X, Y, and Z, and here's the tangible result. It's a wee bit more of a feeling of probably like reconnecting a wee bit and sort of quietening the mind as well, because you're too concentrated on your breath to try and chill out. And chill out is probably the wrong word for it, but calm your breathing and you know, get yourself kind of in that zone. So whilst you're doing that, you're not thinking about any of your problems or your stresses or your day job or whatever it might be. You kind of relax into it. So it's a good technique. What's sort of next for you then? What I'm really kind of sensing from you is I can see there's a bit of a burning desire there probably to share your story. So are you going to do that and try and help others? And what's your next steps? Is that something you've thought about?
I want to keep getting myself out of my comfort zone, which is why I'm here today. Yeah.
Has it done the job? Are you nervous?
Aye, but I've started to calm down, and I've been using some of the mindfulness techniques as we're sitting here to kind of keep myself calm. And sometimes my stutter that I had at school still appears when I'm nervous, but I've kind of found ways to deal with that. So my plans to keep getting out of my comfort zone. I've been going and delivering talks to university students on architectural technology. That's quite daunting, standing up in front of a classroom of people, but that's helped, and I find it quite rewarding. Also engaging with the university staff as well. I've been involved in mentoring some students. I'm an RICS supervisor, and I would eventually like to kind of get in. Eventually like to get into lecturing. I'd like to kind of share my knowledge. I think I'd find it rewarding. I'd like to get involved in research and development as well, because I'd like to give back to the industry and help it become better, because I think it's a bit of a mess sometimes. You'll probably find that as well.
Well, there's plenty going on, definitely.
I've kind of got plans to start a wee vlog as well, just to get discussing things.
I think that would be good. I think you'd be good at that, to be honest. That's brilliant. Well, thanks for coming on and sharing. It's been interesting to hear it, and it's also just like, I just genuinely take my hat off to you, because it's nerve-wracking getting out your comfort zone and sitting on cameras here and people's going to be listening or watching or whatever, but actually doing that, and then on top of that, like, not just keeping it strictly professional, but actually having that other side to it where it's like you're sharing your mental health journey and wee techniques and tips that could help people. I think that's amazing. That's going to make a difference, you know, because we need that in the industry. We really need people to be encouraging others to speak up and let them know that it's okay. So hats off to you. If anybody wants to connect with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you then?
Yeah, you can just contact me through LinkedIn. I'm quite happy for anybody to message me through there, that's fine. Just like to say thanks to you as well. I followed quite a lot of your episodes. I know you're quite candid about your own journey, and I think it's important that you keep doing it. I hope you keep doing this. It's a great thing that you're doing.
No, it's a pleasure. Thanks for that, and it genuinely is a pleasure every time I guess I go another episode, and that's me putting probably myself out my own comfort zone once again. Every time I do it, and I have guys like yourself that come on and share a story so openly like that, it reminds me I'm doing the right thing. So thanks very much for coming on, Keith. Appreciate it, mate. Good man.